Hey guys, what's going on? It's Rekt Capital and welcome back to the channel. We're almost at 4,000 subscribers. What a day. It's fantastic to see that you guys are enjoying the content, want to subscribe and want to tune in to hear about Bitcoin, Ethereum, other cryptocurrencies. And in this episode today, we're going to be talking about altcoins, specifically Polkadot, Swipe, even Yearn.Finance, Litecoin, Chainlink, Cardano, and lastly VeChain. So we've got a lot of TA, a lot of things to cover today, and this episode is essentially an update to the past few episodes that I made about these altcoins, because in the days that have since passed, a few of these altcoins have actually rallied. So let's dive right into the video, but before we do, of course guys, subscribe to the channel. Let's hit 4,000 subscribers and let's dive right into the video. Polkadot at the moment is actually still following through on its fractal right over here. So this fractal is essentially following this blue pathway and then rallying finally into the blue diagonal resistance. So you can actually see how we're in the final stage of this fractal where we went up, down, and now we're in this final dipping stage where actually we dipped towards the higher low, and this is a perfect fractal in the sense that we actually have a slope of 12 degrees, the same sort of slope we have in this fractal. So there's a lot of mirroring going on here, and this is the sort of psychology that I really like to see in the charts, because psychology is cyclical, which is why you see cyclical things occur in the price action. And yesterday on Twitter I tweeted about this higher low needing to hold for this fractal to stay intact, and what a picture perfect wick into the higher low that was. A perfect rebound since then, 6%, and now we might actually see price follow through on that final stage of rallying towards the blue diagonal resistance for a major trend decision. But at the same time, remember guys, FOMO wicks are very likely, and in fact one of my followers on Twitter asked, why did I draw a trend line touching the candle bodies over here but touching the top of the wicks over here? And that's a very good question. That was a very fair comment, because if I actually brought this trend line down towards the candle bodies over here, these wicks would be peaking past the trend line in the same way that these wicks are peaking past the trend line. So this, if this were near the candle bodies, then we'd actually have price, the trend line at this price over here. So this trend line over here just accounts for the fact that we could see some wicking from this point towards the blue diagonal in the same way that we see wicking here and wicking here. So as long as this higher low continues to hold, we're probably gonna see a trend decision at this blue diagonal. Let's move on to Swipe, and Swipe has had a nice rally in of itself as well. We were talking about this flagging structure over here and how the bottom of this flag needed to hold for this structure to be preserved. We spoke about the buy side pressure over here being a little less strong. It was much weaker than the sell side pressure over here, but we were able to rally from the bottom of the structure. We were able to close, because that's the most important thing, closing within the structure and then finally rallying out from here, closing on the daily and actually pulling back into the top of this flagging structure to test it as a support. And of course we did revisit the red area over here, so that's something we were talking about in the previous video. We've rallied 12% since then, and we have successfully rallied into this strong resistance. So as long as price manages to hold the top of its flag and successfully retest it in this candle, we're going to have another challenge of this resistance, and I'd just like to see a candle close within this resistance just to pierce into that cloud of sell side orders. And once we manage to do that, then we could actually see this resistance start to disintegrate a bit, because we want to see the bottom of this resistance turn into a support, and that will be a very positive sign. But that's all for Swipe at the moment. Let's move on to Yearn.Finance over here. Guys, this was a head and shoulders formation, something we spoke about in the video a few days back. It has translated into price. It's broken past this red level, the red level essentially being a support that enabled a rally to form this right shoulder over here. But on the pullback, we failed to hold this as a support, and indeed we rallied to this order block over here, which we mentioned in the previous video as well. So that was a rally from 10 to 18% from this order block right over here. This was the last stand for Yearn.Finance to hold before this head and shoulders actually broke down, because over here you can see this is the neckline of the head and shoulders. Really precarious situation. So even though we've bounced from here and there were a few buy orders, a few buyers here willing to buy Yearn.Finance on the pullback, you can see that this relief rally is probably relief. What we saw here as a support is now figuring as a resistance, and we've seen a strong pullback so far. So unless we're able to break past above this red level, we won't see bullish momentum translate into price. So this head and shoulders is still very much intact. It's still the likely scenario. The bias is still bearish for Yearn.Finance, and once we see a breakdown from that neckline, we of course have to lose these two supports over here, support number 1 and support number 2 over here. But once we fully clear those levels, we could see a drop, a much deeper drop for Yearn.Finance going forward. But moving on to Litecoin. Litecoin was another coin that we covered on the channel here, and we spoke about how essentially we broke back in to the reaccumulation area, because these green boxes over here are essentially points of reaccumulation over time for Litecoin. And every time we've seen a reaccumulation here, we've seen rallies towards the upside, rallies towards the upside, rallies towards the upside, and rallies towards the upside. So now we've actually broken back into this reaccumulation area, this historical reaccumulation area, very similar to what we saw in the past in this pink circle. So breaking back into this region, this is essentially a $8 range, $40.80 to $48.80. What we essentially saw was a retest of the bottom of the range in the form of this wick over here, guys, and then a flick back up towards the top of the range. So that's a 16% rally. And in the previous video, I spoke to you guys that I wouldn't necessarily be building a long-term position in Litecoin, but I would be considering a intra-range trade. And that's exactly the sort of movement that we saw since then. Range low to range high, and if we can't close above this level, then we're going to see a rejection. You saw this figure as a resistance on these 2 weekly candles. This could still be the case over here. If we can't close and claim this as a support, we're going to see a rejection for further consolidation within this range. That's all for Litecoin. Consolidation on a higher time frame, not too exciting, but what I really am excited about, guys, is the newsletter that I'm launching in the next few weeks. And this newsletter is going to be a celebration of what Rekt Capital stands for. It's going to be market analysis, cutting edge research, private technical analysis sessions, and lots of educational posts about risk management, technical analysis, and psychology, as well as data science, all for an early bird discount of less than 50 cents per newsletter. That's $5 a month. So click in the link in the description down below to subscribe today and make the most of that early bird discount. And having said that, guys, let's move on into Chainlink. Chainlink hasn't really changed since the previous video on Chainlink. The parabola is still intact. The support has been tapped so far. It's a strong support. It's still hanging about at these highs. Not much movement at the moment. But if we just zoom into the daily, you can see that there is a multi-week downtrending resistance on price. And you can see here that recently Chainlink broke down from a consolidation period, and it might be flicking up to turn the bottom of this range into a new resistance, which is actually confluent with this downtrending resistance dating back to mid-August. So downtrending resistance could reject price. We could see a revisit of this area, but above all else, let's see if a higher low forms here. So that hasn't really played out just yet. We have to wait for Link to give us a bit more data and a bit more of a better entry at the moment, because it's still mid-trend, still trying to find its footing. It's likely to reject through here, but of course if it breaks past through here, that's a new trend for Chainlink, at least on the daily time frame. So that's something to be aware of, but at the same time, be mindful of a rejection here. So it is a trend decision on the line over here, but I'm not too certain at this point in time that we're going to actually see a new trend develop past this point. But moving on to Cardano ADA. So not only is ADA sandwiched in between this resistance, but sandwiched between this daily exponential moving average, the 200 DEMA. So that's essentially a range forming there. So price is currently at a resistance. Let's see how long this consolidation will go on for and which side of the range it will break down from, because if it manages to break past the local resistance, a rally towards the red area is possible. But of course, I am still keeping my eye on here in case we break down from that range. ADA is a bit indecisive at this point in time. And let's move on to VeChain, the last coin we're going to be covering today. This is a very strong retrace towards a very important reference point for price, and the blue area has been a historical support area, and we've been seeing a lot of wicking, a downward wick on multiple occasions towards this level. Not picture perfect by any means, but we've been seeing wicking into this area, triggering those low buy orders, waiting for VeChain to go a bit lower. These buy orders are getting triggered, but they're not really translating into much. And in the previous video on VeChain, I wanted to see what sort of a rally could we see after triggering these buy orders at these levels, because that will give us some insight into how strong this rally will be. And at the moment, we've only produced this candle and of course a rebound from this wick. So at the moment, not much strength there. If we relief rally towards this area, for instance, then that's going to be a relief rally and we'll probably see lower levels once again. So let's see how strong this relief rally will be. At the moment, it is relief. It does feel like relief. It isn't that strong at the moment. If it relief rallies towards this level and rejects from this, we'll see, we'll notice that the buyers just weren't that strong to propel price towards higher levels. So at the moment, not much going on for VeChain. It needs to still try and firmly establish a base, and I'm not really sure it has established that base quite firmly, even though buyers are buying at this region. But are the buyers strong enough to really propel price into a trend reversal that's going to be a bit more sustainable past these 2 points? Because at the moment they haven't been. So at the moment I'm still just focused on relief from VeChain. And that's about it for today's video update, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Let's hit 4,000 subscribers together. Thank you so much for your support over the past few weeks, months and years. And here's to 4,000 subscribers more and beyond. Thank you so much, guys, for watching today. I'm Rekt Capital and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak soon.